Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the best place to learn about game development and the lifestyle of game developers in podcast form. Larry Charles, one half of the Game Dev Unchained podcast team. And this person was the first person to ever... Shit. I was going to say something.
I wasn't the first one to shit, but I won't be the last either. This is Brandon Fan. Welcome to our episode, Game Dev Unchained, the podcast.
It's different with the cameras on.
It's different with the cameras on. So we are inviting our special guest, our dear friend, Zac Rich.
Zach.
Guys.
Hey, man. Welcome.
All right. Ooh. That thing just comes on perfect timing. Yeah. So Zach has obviously been on the podcast before for long-time listeners, but Zach, for the first-time listeners and viewers out there, do you mind kind of giving us a little background of where you are, what you're doing?
Absolutely. So I'm the founding partner of a law firm called Press Start Legal. We represent the gaming industry. So we work with developers, publishers, Twitch streamers, influencers. We really span the gambit of interactive entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect.
Nice. That's, it's short and sweet. It's like, Larry, this is what I do.
Yeah.
The more that I've done this now, I've been able to narrow that down.
Yeah.
No, that's Before it used to be this long rambling thing, and now I'm like, you don't want to listen to that.
And if again, for new listeners out there, what led you to wanting to start this venture in the first place?
So I'm a huge fan of games, is what it really boils down to. I'm a gamer by heart, and as an attorney, when you work in big law and you deal with, when the clients become more about numbers on a spreadsheet than actually about the individuals and what they're building or their companies, it becomes so stressful that you end up burning yourself out. And I wanted to find a way that I could take my career as an attorney and mash it with my passion for working with creatives and video games. And that led me to launching my own firm and working with some of the best people in the world.
Dude, awesome, man. We're glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and I would imagine with your vast knowledge of game experience and then also you being an attorney, you've probably worked on some really cool projects and you've seen your fair share of good things happening in the game industry and also when they call you, like either the bad or things that need to be settled part of the game industry. Am I correct in that assessment?
Absolutely. We sometimes will get lucky and we'll get to work with either a new studio or, a young studio, and we get to help them before anything goes wrong. Mm-hmm. And I would say that's 35-40% of what we do. The other 60% is, hey, we're being sued, or hey, we got this letter from this rights holder who claims that our game is infringing. What do we do? And that's when we step in. So we're both a sword and a shield.
We got this letter that says cease and desist. What does that mean? What's this legal jargon that they?
Well, let's get to the meat and potatoes of this episode. Obviously, Zach, you've been on the podcast before. You know the format. We had you on before to kind of give advice or a suggestion. What's the legal term? So you don't get...
No, he can do it. He's a lawyer.
Yes.
We don't have to do that boilerplate. Yeah. Like,
right.
I'm not a lawyer.
All right, okay.
We can do it
now.
But
we have to give some boilerplate. So I am a lawyer, but I'm not...
Adults are talking.
Well, I am your lawyer, but I'm not your listener's lawyer. So while you guys can't consider this legal advice, it is my opinion from my experience working in the legal field of video games.
Yeah, okay.
That's my boilerplate.
There we go.
Disclaimer.
That's our ass armor
there. The
Yeah.
ass armor is on. Yeah. So let's talk about this, right? Loot boxes is going through a huge legal ramification. And
what's loot box?
What is loot box?
I thought it was surprise mechanics.
Oh, surprise mechanics. I'm sorry. He just sprung that one on me. He actually surprised me with that one. My bad. His acting is so good. So, Zach, can you kind of catch us up? Can you catch us up with that? Like, what is going on right now with loot boxes? And kind of give like a slightly overview for people who are not caught up. Yeah.
Absolutely. So everyone knows, at least people who would be listening to your podcast, that the easiest way to monetize any game, whether it be mobile, AAA, indie, PC, console, is loot boxes, microtransactions. And what's happening is all around the world, loot boxes are gaining very negative attention, and it's because the mechanic itself is presented in a very predatory way that is in effect causing individuals, young individuals, obviously people over the age of, I want to say 16, but really it's the age of 18 and up, should know better. But young individuals who don't really understand the value of money, just using their parents' credit card and buy. And now all of a sudden you have a $2,000-$3,000 credit card bill, and on it is, $3,000 from the Epic Game Store because of loot boxes or EA or, any of them. And not to just name those two individuals. I mean, you see it all across gaming, and it can be anywhere. Sure. Now, because of that, you're starting to see member states of the EU ban the practice outright. You have U.S. senators trying to pass bills that ban it outright in the United States. You have the FTC starting to take comments before they start passing their own regulations on this. And now you have the ESA sitting back going, crap, we should have got in front of this issue. And now, similar to what happened with violence in video games, they're going to play catch up and try to shift the narrative to be a self-regulated industry.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing is individuals are trying to compare loot boxes to gambling. And there's, a lot of different sides to this story.
Yeah. What's funny to me is gambling isn't illegal, right? Like I think those same countries that are banning loot boxing, I don't explicitly know that they've also like banned casinos or banned gambling whatsoever. So is there, I guess, why do we face, all the disdain from the European government as to why it cannot exist anymore? Why is EA in front of Parliament trying to explain its surprise mechanics and not loot boxes? It's not gambling.
So you're
first,
right.
Before we even get to that,
sure.
right, how do you side with the lawyer's defense on calling it surprise? Is it like just
how hard did you?
Was that clever to you, or was that the best move they could have done? Yeah.
Is it the best? No. If they're arguing this, say in the United States, there is a strict definition of what is considered gambling, and if you stack loot boxes up against what that definition is, it fails for one very particular purpose. And that's because the definition states that gambling is any activity where an item of value is placed at risk in an attempt to gain greater value. So in essence, you're betting money to get money. In video games, it's you're betting money to get an item, but these items, and this is what the big argument is in the United States, is there is no value, or right now, no monetary value attached to that item. That is sort of the biggest debate, because how do you put money on a digital good that you can't resell for more money? I mean, there are obviously ways to do it on the grays and black market per se, and you could sell your account on eBay, and in essence, you sold the value of that item. And you see this in MMORPGs where people are selling items and whatnot. But because of that one large stepping point of being able to exchange what you earned from that risk for a higher value, it's not considered gambling per se. The big issue that you're seeing in the EU and also in the United States is the predatory nature of the practice. It's putting out that shiny new skin or that shiny new character or whatever it is that you want to put in that loot box, and then hiding the fact that you're going to spend $15 on a premium currency to get a 1% chance to get that item, even though we're displaying it and we're saying it's in this box. We are not telling you that the odds of you getting that are 1 in 600, 7,000. And that's the big issue.
What's interesting to me is that like the half step that I hear that people are like at least requiring is like China, for example, you have to display the odds, right? But the compulsive nature of loot box spending and that loop of like spend a couple of moments of shine, flash, open the thing. Did I get it? Did I not? That loop happens outside of someone knowing the odds. So I don't see that having like any any gravity or any weight on that scenario, I think those same people with the addictive natures are still going to have the same problem of like, well, I didn't get it, let me do it again. I didn't get it, let me do it again. Showing me that like it's a 1 in 3,000 chance, likely not going to stop that decision making.
No, absolutely. And in fact, in the United States, you don't need to display the odds.
Yeah.
The reason why you're slowly starting to see it now in certain markets and in certain games is because the EU, the largest member state, Germany, was the driving force of that. Now you see it in Belgium, you see it in the Netherlands, and even the UK has passed laws that for these particular mechanics, you need to display the odds of winning. That had a trickle-down effect into the United States because developers basically said, why am I going to change one thing for one side of the world? It'd be easier for us to do it all together.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's exactly what you said. There have been studies, there are articles discussing this, that the addictive nature of that opportunity to win is what drives loot boxes. And it's very dangerous, as shown. I mean, when you have congressmen and senators trying to pass bills banning the practice, it's time to take a good step back and evaluate what this practice is. And where EA will sit there and tell you it's surprise mechanics and it's the same thing as getting a Kinder Egg, in reality, it's not. You're not going to walk into 7-Eleven and see a Kinder Egg put up on a pedestal spinning around with LED lights shining on it saying, buy me.
Yeah. You know what else is interesting too is like a lot of people say like trading cards is another example of kids who are used to spending the $3, having a good idea of what's inside, but not necessarily explicitly knowing. A pack of trading cards will always have and will always be whatever is inside of that pack is in there, right? Like it's an actual tangible good. There's no patch update, right? They're like, oh, sorry, hold on a second. We've pulled magically 4 cards out of that pack, still charging you the same price. Yeah. None of the behind the scenes stuff that, you know, kind of occurs that you can't trust. Yeah. There's a lot more trust in the physical, whereas with the loot box, I'm at the mercy of code. Yeah. I'm at the mercy of RNG, and I'm at the mercy of whenever they felt like changing the odds or the mechanics on me, you know, I'm still paying that same price.
Absolutely. And the thing with trading cards, now this also depends on what type of trading card it is. There is also an inherent value attached to those cards.
Yes.
You know, those original Pokemon cards from 1994, 1995, they're actually worth something today.
Yeah. Good God.
You know, so all that money you spend after mowing the lawn to go down to Walmart to buy that next pack of cards that just got released, you might actually be able to get some of that money back. Yeah. You're never going to see that money back from these games. And you know, one interesting story that's starting to break, and that it was kind of trying to think of the right word to put it. It was unfortunately not highlighted as much as it should at E3. There is a new game coming out. The name of it completely escapes me at the moment. But the article caught my eye because the game will have loot boxes. But as the game develops, and this is also an evolution of sort of the games as a service, as sequels get released, they're going to port those items that are going to be available in the loot boxes to the future iterations of the game. And that's why they can sit here and say, it's okay if you want to give us $5 for X amount of premium currency for a chance to, you know, buy that new skin for that vehicle. Don't feel bad. When we put out this, you know, version number 2, you'll still have it.
Okay. I think,
and that's one of the scary things about games.
Yeah.
You know, if you can't take it with you, you know,
I call bullshit because knowing how game development works, right? Yeah. Mass Effect 1, 2, 3, they tried that where they kind of transfer over your avatar that you've made and you're journeying through all 3 games. And by the 3rd game, people were upset because the ending didn't matter.
Sure.
Based on, it's supposed to be a tailored custom experience, but it was the same ending for everyone.
Yeah.
Game studios closed left and right, all right? Fine.
It's true.
You sell me on this idea that I can carry over my loots to the next one. There's only a few titles out there that can deliver on that promise. Maybe the Call of Duty games.
Well, any sports game, I think.
Any sports
that's a good tie-in my opinion.
But that's a lot of server space that they're just holding just for you, hoping that this game will. And the idea, the one thing that kind of like was hypocritical in that statement is the idea of sequels and carrying over. Like you have to be moving towards the subscription model of games as a service to make that work, right? If Overwatch became Overwatch as a service and there's no 2, then yeah, I can see that being like 10 years down the line, I can still have my avatar and all my loots and stuff. But as soon as you move over to the sequel, it's a whole new ecosystem. Yeah. And it's just a lot of legwork unless you're like really thriving as a business. That's the first thing that you cut as soon as you start thinking sequels. So yes, they might sell you on the second idea, the second game, and maybe they'll get that far. But if their whole business is around that and you're telling me only on the sequel, it's like, all right, I'm gone.
So there's a lot of truth to what Brandon's saying. As a consumer, like it sounds like a good promise, right? Like I'm investing in this. I'm going to get more return out of this dollar because I'm going to buy it once. If I get it, I have it for if a next game comes out, it should be there. And if a game after that comes out, it should be there. So that idea of being sold that promise, I can understand. The developer is also low risk too because if we make a sequel, it'll be there.
Yeah, exactly. You best believe crafty attorneys are drafting that marketing language.
Yeah. Yep. The hard part for me is like it's a kick in the ass is in regards to scalability if you aren't the right type of product. Like if NBA 20K1 is like, hey, we have this special McDonald's jersey that you just won, right? I imagine it's not going to be so difficult changing the texture material of the next version of their game's McDonald's jersey to use that same art. It's less of a stretch in my mind where if a game is like, hey, we've done a graphical overhaul of our game, right? So Overwatch 2 comes out. The models are 3 times as, detailed, higher fidelity. Yeah. That Tracer outfit that you unlocked in Overwatch 1, we had to remodel and redo for Overwatch 2. So before we can even sell a new loot box, we have to retrofit all the old stuff. And that's the kick in the ass where if it's not the right type of game, it's DOA, man. Mm-hmm. But I like it if it's a sports title. Like, hey, that little logo on the helmet that you ordered from, Madden 20K, it's now in 20K1.
I think congratulations. Sports has the best chance to work, but like very few are like sports titles. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you do see it now in games as a service subscription based. You look at Destiny. That game, it's a 3-4 year old game, and it just hit a milestone of having 1 million active players. Yep. And they're all about their loot boxes and cosmetic items, and it will continue from year release to even today in 2019, and it's still holding strong.
Mm-hmm. What kills me about loot boxes is like, and we kind of touched on this before, I don't have a problem with loot boxes when I know that my cost of entry was like significantly minimum, right? Free to play game, 99-cent game. I don't care that there's loot boxes. I feel even if I'm compelled, right, and I've spent $30 and I'm like, oh my God, I spent $30. I always feel less about that than when I've paid the $60 and then I'm paying the like season pass fee. And then I'm paying the $2-3 for the loot box. I'm like, my God, how much money are you trying to take from me?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's definitely a psychological aspect. Yeah, go ahead, Zach.
We can thank EA for this because they were the ones that thought that they could get away with it, and the industry told them no. You're not going to find game mechanics locked behind paywalls and loot boxes. I mean, let me add a caveat to that statement. If it's a free-to-play mobile game or a free-to-play MMO, sure, there's probably some paywalls in there, but they're not locked behind loot boxes. They might be content locked. Yeah. But, it was really Epic that pioneered that you can make millions of dollars selling virtual clothing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. As soon as as soon as Fortnite doesn't exist anymore, all that money that all these kids have been spending on outfits and skins, gone.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I have no problem at all with like any sort of game where their loot boxes or their little rewards boxes or surprise mechanics aren't game changing as far as competitive nature or game balance is concerned. It's like, oh, you got splashy time water gun, cool. Oh, you got BFG, like homage to Quake, cool, awesome. But it's just a skin. It's not. It doesn't change the balance. It has nothing to do with actual game power-ups. Therefore, I'm less compelled to worry that like you have some sort of advantage that you've purchased. Yeah. I don't give a shit that you spent $10,000 on trying to get all the outfits. I can still own you. You have no extra advantage. Like I like that style of loot boxes, and I think that I don't have a problem if you try to sell loot box content like that, like appearance upgrades, sell it till the cows come home. In my opinion, it doesn't bother me. Characters, right? Like specific characters, like powerful weapons, tiered advantages that save you time because you spent money, and it makes the game experience completely ruined for other people. I'm talking about Star Wars here now. It's totally not fair. Like that is. I'm glad that EA got burnt for how they tried to implement the loot box strategy in Star Wars Battlefront 2. Because I did not want that precedent to actually be successful.
Yeah, and I'm like on the wall with EA because they are the one that really test the waters with the loot box stuff. They really go far and too far sometimes. Yeah. Other companies either don't touch it or touch it just a little. Yeah. So I'm glad EA is kind of really bringing this in front of Congress quicker than any other company, right? Because it is important. It is a new tech, and we know those guys over there are usually slower on tech and anything that's happening, especially in the game world. And so it's great that we're getting these answers right now so that designers don't have to wait until they're really old to realize it doesn't work, right? So we can react to it now. And I think on the consumer side, it helps because we're getting reactions kind of like what Larry is saying. He's like, cosmetics fine. Anybody hate loot boxes that kind of pivots the gameplay narrative, right? And so I think now they know, right? Especially with all the Star Wars Battlefront stuff and all. Man, every 3 months it's always EA. So like
it is absolutely.
It's always EA. So it's great that they brought this to everybody's attention, kind of pissing everyone off, and they have the ability to kind of step back and rethink their strategy without going bankrupt or whatever. Because any other company would be, I think, harder to rebound from this.
Do you guys think it has now become too expensive to just do good business in the games industry at a top level? Do you think it's all greed that's driving this, or is it literally like they have to grasp at every possible penny?
I'm going to get Zach this.
You know what I mean? Like, are we outside of the realm of like, hey, we made a good game, and sure, you can buy these like little microtrans things, but we're not trying to get $3,000 credit card purchases out of you. We can, if you spend $100 on this, by the time you're done, we're happy.
Do you think corporations will stop being greedy, Zach? What do you think?
So this is a loaded question. At the basic core, no. A corporation's goal is to make money no matter what they tell you, no matter how fluffy their commercials are and tell you that they're looking after your privacy. And come on. They exist. The sole reason they exist is to make money. But I do not think that we will see the end of microtransactions or loot boxes anytime soon, unless, of course, they become illegal. But game development, as you guys know, and as the listeners know, has become so expensive that short of raising the price, and you're already paying $60 for a game. I remember back in the day that games were $30.
Yeah, I remember 49 and then going to 60 and being like, "What the fuck is this? $60?"
What was it? Xbox 360 set the bar at $59.95, and it was just, what the hell is this? It's become easier for people to swallow $60 for a new title, but consumer demand for better quality, for new technologies, for better graphics, for new gameplay ideas, for connected worlds, that all costs a lot of money that a $60 price tag might not exactly cover anymore. And if you're going to tell me that, say, the new Cyberpunk game costs $75 to buy, I might take a step back and go, do I really want to spend $75 on a game? I might not.
Before they charge you for loot boxes.
Right? Before they charge you for loot boxes, before they, and this is not a slight on them, this is more, I guess, a slight on Anthem, but before the game is even finished and they release it, and then you just bought a $75 pile of junk, it makes it harder for a consumer to make that impulsive buy. And I think that if you see that, you'll see the game industry decline, at least sales decline. So I think microtransactions will always be a staple to supplement that added expenses. I don't think it's appropriate that, as you guys put it, for them to affect actual gameplay and gameplay mechanics. If you want to create all the cosmetic items in the world, go for it. Personally, I would prefer it to go more of the epic and yeah, I guess not even Blizzard, but more Epic, where it's, you want this, here's the cost of it, buy it.
Yeah.
I think that mechanic will gain more popularity versus the, you can give us $10 and you can have a chance to get this.
Yeah. I think what scares me and why I was kind of framing the question, like the ethical, like, do they have to go after $3,000 credit card purchases? Like, we all know, of course, if you're in a for-profit business, you do want to make profit. But to better frame how I'm asking that is to the point of cannibalization is what I mean. So like, you look at the fishing industry. We are killing off species of fish because of overfishing. Each individual corporation is like, well, you know, we want to sell more tuna this year. We want to sell more salmon this year. We want to sell more X. They're fishing these seas, and now they're running out of supply because they've gotten to the point where they've chased so far down towards a profit that they've started to cannibalize.
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm getting at is, when you're cannibalizing the community, do you still put, pedal to the metal, try to make as much profit as I can before I get out of here? Because that's my sentiment is I feel like there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, this is cannibalization, but there's still fish while I'm here.
Yeah.
So while my resume will say, hey, I got them X more billions of dollars this year, let me go to Netflix with this shining star. Don't give a shit that I've cannibalized the industry and I've made it harder for consumers to buy games in a way that is causing companies to shut down. Smaller studios not exist. Big AAA titles, not as many. Mid-tier studios disappearing. You know what I mean? That's where we are, is like, I feel like cannibalization is happening.
It's definitely happening, but it's like, I think it's often distracted and disguised by the numbers, because every year the game industry is profiting more, right? We're constantly breaking records every year, but how are we earning that money? It's like you said, it's like we do have lesser studios and lesser games are coming out, and in terms of blockbuster hits, but maybe more indie, and we're kind of covering our losses through other means that isn't exactly apparent. And so I think the what we call it, the ability with corporations. Is it intrinsic? The intrinsic nature of corporations.
So like they're...
Yeah, there you go. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Zac Rich, our lawyer.
You're on a roll. You're on a roll. Keep it going.
So their whole thing is about making profit within the next quarter, right? Their only short-sightedness is kind of conquering everything that they're doing. So they don't care about what's going on 5-10 years down the line. But
I guess that's my point, right? Like, if I was running Xerox, right? Not only do I want to sell the most printers this month, but I want Xerox to continuously sell the most printers, like, for decades. You know what I mean?
But their method is always like, if I am 2 steps ahead, I'll always be 10 steps ahead. But that is not true, right? You're driving all the talent out. By the time 5-10 years, who's left? It's going to be a bunch of interns and newcomers who are fresh in the industry, and that's going to crumble.
I'll already be at Netflix. That's the scary part. So that's
what we're seeing.
That's what scares me is like, I completely understand a need or a want to be driven by revenue and profits and growth, but there's also a responsibility and ethics that you can't overlook, because you're basically going to ruin your opportunity to even make money in any sort of like generous way. Like, even a greed, like, sure, greed, but if you get to the point where you're past the point of return, where there's like at least equilibrium, right? Like, you are now, every time that you grow, you're making it harder for you to sustain. Right? You're killing your own company at that point in time, and that's the scary thought.
Well, it's happening. Like, who's left? If we're talking about the Titans, EA, Activision, Take-Two.
We're in agreement.
But they're also cannibalizing themselves. I mean, the Bungie split from Activision and Blizzard because of the control that they wanted to have on their titles. And when you're seeing, and this was a great article that came out the other day that really kind of went in the inside of the split. Is one of the big sticking points was Activision kept driving loot boxes, microtransactions, and Bungie didn't want that, and they actually ended up getting a lot of backlash and tarnish on the reputation. Bungie did, because when they released the Eververse store in Destiny 2, it was always designed to be cosmetic only. But then people started discovering that these cosmetic only additives had actual gameplay elements built into it. And so they effectively forced Bungie, more or less, obviously this is depending on take this article for it being true,
Sure.
forced Bungie to put microtransactions and loot boxes in place for game mechanics and cosmetics, and sort of hid that fact from people. And when you do that, you lose your consumers' trust.
Yep.
Yeah.
Necktie game design.
Necktie game design.
Yep. But there is, I think there's a way to effectively correct this course of action, and a lot of that is on the customer service level. You hear champion stories come out of Epic, as much as we're sort of hating on them right now for their predatory practices with skins, that I have heard stories from parents who have received these $3,000-$4,000 credit card bills, had called Epic's customer service line and had it all refunded. Now, I don't know if the kid's account would then get banned or if they pulled the skins or whatnot, but I would say that good customer service from studios and publishers will correct everything.
Yeah.
These are digital goods. You're printing money, I don't blame you. I probably would too. You bought them. Okay. You want your money back? Sure. Give me all back.
Yeah.
It's a digital currency. It's a digital good. It's very easy to wipe off.
Yeah.
Especially when nothing's actually being hosted on the end user's computer.
Is there anything else that's comparable to loot boxes in other industries right now,
besides gambling
or gambling? Yeah. Is it literally just a combination of gambling and Bitcoin, or what is it? Is it even?
Let's start breaking it down, right? Like I'm paying real money for a chance to get things that are technically intangible, like they don't really exist.
Gambling,
They'll give me some sort of experience, and then once the experience is done, it's gone.
It's not even cash.
It's not even the lotto. You know what I mean? Like there's things that relate. There's overlap, but I guess money in, product out is different.
Yeah.
Have either of you been to Japan?
Plinko, or those little pachinko machines?
Pachinko machines?
Yeah, not even that. Yeah. Those little capsule things where you put like $1 in or a yen in, and then you get the capsule with the toy in it. Yeah. You don't know which toy you're going to get, but there's like 6 of them on front of the machine.
Got you. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's
that's the closest real life thing I can think of. But then you're not worrying about massive credit card bills. You're just worrying about losing all your cash.
Okay, so then the closest thing I could think of, if we are willing to also look at video games but not call them loot boxes, then digital packs for for Hearthstone or for Magic the Gathering.
Those are basically loot boxes.
Exactly. It's you're paying the money, you're getting a random assortment of things, and then once the service is over, it's gone.
Forever.
Yeah.
And even in those situations, you can almost attach a value to those items. So like the original, and I haven't seen if it's still up. Maybe it is in its original server load and cards, but the first time Magic the Gathering went online, people were selling accounts or selling those cards for money. You can see them all over eBay and online and different places. So, that could have actual value to it. There was that big issue with the Counter-Strike skins for the guns and the knives and all that. Those have, and I'm surprised somebody would pay that kind of money, but there are some skins in Counter-Strike that will sell for $400 or $500.
Yeah. So here's
an
unpopular opinion, especially because I think I have two examples where one is actually used, I would say, well, and the other is actually used not well, but they're both doing almost the exact same thing, is pay-to-play design from the bottom up. For example, if you're playing World of Warcraft right now, you can start a level 1 character and grind your ass off until you finally get to 110, and then start enjoying the real content, the new content from 110 to 120. Or you can pay $60 to skip up to 110 and then just enjoy the 110 to 120 leveling experience. I don't mind the bottom up level design because I know that like from 1 to 110 is a very lonely experience at this stage in the game. And it's a lot of time that you're going to be playing a game that you're supposed to be in a community, supposed to be like enjoying things in groups and tiers. Even though they've done a couple of things to help make that not as bad, it's still like for the most part, you're going to do a lot of stuff by yourself. So you're not really going to enjoy that game till like, let's say 110 to 120 in my eyes. Then you have NBA 2K.
Which could be a month or so away.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand that like, hey, buy this thing that will skip that. and it is giving you a gameplay increase, right? Like it's making you more powerful. It's letting you skip content to join the rest of the audience. You know what I mean? So like, I don't feel bad about that. But then there's another game that for some reason I feel it's shiesty, is like the NBA 2K series almost literally does the same thing. It's like, hey, your pro that you make, shitty stats. You can play top level stuff. You're going to get dominated. No one's going to want you in their group. No one's going to want to play with you. You have to either grind for almost the full product cycle before the new one comes out if you want to get to the top level stuff for free, or you can then just buy the boost and then they'll let you start playing. Like you'll actually have a character who has stats decent enough where you can play and like people aren't going to shit on you just from seeing your profile. For some reason, even though it feels like the exact same thing, I don't mind it in World of Warcraft, but it bothers me to my core to see that it was like intentionally done that way in like NBA 2K. It's like, I guess WoW is like, we've released 6-7 games of content that we're helping you skip through. Whereas 2K, literally the one game, its own product cycle is like, hey, you can't even get to this content yet. Get yourself these stats, and now you can start enjoying the game. I guess maybe that's where I stand on it being like a shitty. But, you know, I think if done right, I don't mind letting people buy their way through something to join a community of people, to make it more fun. I guess I don't necessarily know exactly where I feel on that yet, but I feel like Blizzard is kind of doing it better than 2K for sure. I don't think they designed their product intentionally to like, oh, you suck. It's going to suck. Give us your money for the game that you just bought. Like someone just gave you a game. Like, here you go, Brandon. Here's a copy of NBA, what is it, 20 now? 2K20. Here's a copy. Oh, by the way, I just gave you an obligation because you're not going to start enjoying this game until you put in the $65 to boost your character. It's like giving somebody a puppy for their birthday. Like,
is it an insubordinate amount of time to kind of get to 65 level on NBA 2K? I don't play that.
Yes, I don't. I follow it myself, and so it's more like people are just upset that I've bought this game and I have to buy into the experience even further.
So there's no way there is a way to earn unless you put a lot.
It is, but again, it's like there's going to be a 2K21, right?
By the time
it's going to take you 10 months to do it for free to get to that point. So really, how much time do you really have to enjoy being in that top community? Exactly, and I guess that's the big issue.
But then see, looking at your World of Warcraft example, you're going to jump into a game, use that boost, and you'll have 10 levels between 110 and 120 to learn how to play the game. But, you know, when you get to 120, if you didn't really learn the game, you're going to be completely lost. And there's so many mechanics in that system where I feel like you would be almost disadvantaged doing that jump. Whereas NBA 2K, it's almost the same thing too. Like if you're terrible at the game, the point of that grind is not only to obviously get your character to a pro sort of level, but to get your own skills there too.
Would you say like there's an irresponsible amount of time though? You know what I mean? Like if you're like a daily player contributing to your stats every single day and you're on average still taking about 6-7 months, and now you only have a few months left to enjoy the game before they're like, hey, do it all over again.
That's how the world works, dude. When you're rich, you're good.
No. I do agree with you in that aspect. If you're going to have systems in place that are designed from the start to force individuals into paying that sum, that's a big no for me. I that's almost as bad as a loot box that tells you, hey, buy this awesome skin for $10, but it's a 0.05% chance of dropping. You know, if you're designing your game to drive monetization, I don't think you're designing the game for one, its longevity, and two, for the actual consumer who's going to be playing it. Where World of Warcraft is in a massive, expansive game. You have 120 levels worth of content. The game's been out since 2004. That would make sense for me. It would take you three weeks to a month to get to the end of where the game is at now. But that game like NBA 2K, you
got 6 months.
Actually,
it shouldn't take you 6 months to do that.
You brought up another good point that actually I can reference. When I bought the latest expansion, I got like a free character boost up to not the top level, not 110, but I think I got to like level 100. So just for buying the new game, they gave me a free level 0 to level 100 boost. So I was 10 levels behind the starting point, and then I could start the game and actually be that much closer to playing the content that I paid for. So that feels a little more responsible to say that, like, we know we have this massive system and we know there's this grind. So you paid $60 for this new content, but you can't play it because you're a brand new player. You have to start from level 1. Man, that's tough. You know what I mean? Like, you just bought the $60 game that you get to play 10 months from now. So I at least can appreciate that, I guess.
And Destiny did the same thing. If you bought the Forsaken bundle with all the stuff in it for $40, and I think it's now at $39 because they're moving everything around, they give you a boost to skip past all the original content because they know you're buying it to play with your friends who are max level. And I think they also know that the original half of the game is terrible.
The Peter Dinklage version. Those days.
You know, you guys just gotta take the old-fashioned cheap model.
Okay.
That I don't buy anything extra outside of my. There's no game. I guess this is huge in only recently in shooters, right? Where the loot boxes starting. I think maybe probably from EA, but then Call of Duty for
sure.
Call of Duty for sure.
Yeah.
Since
Guns
we
with
worked on
stats.
that. And then, but it's mostly prevalent in RPG and games like that, strategy games, right? So I've never really prescribed to this. I've always been very cheap to buy anything extra. I've never bought an iPhone game ever.
Damn.
Right?
Really?
No.
Really?
Never.
Even with kids?
No. I look at
man.
it because I'm so primarily from the PC days where I used to play games online for free, right? After I bought the game, as long as I have an internet connection. So even with the Xbox Online Pass and Console Pass to play games online, it's completely foreign to me, and I refuse. I have my internet. I have my box. I should be able to connect and play my games online.
Here's a very interesting question for you because I've brought this up before. Is it time, especially with how fast our internet speeds are around the world? 100%. America, we're fast enough that I think we could bring this back. Remember back in the day when you used to play Unreal or when you used to play Quake or any of these shooters, you were linked together as a group of like 10 to 15 computers, right? Whoever had the fastest connection was exactly peer-to-peer was providing the gameplay. Could you imagine?
And when that host dropped, everyone froze for like a good 5 to 6 minutes while they waited to figure out who had the next
fastest. Transitioning the game. But maybe it's time to see a resurgence or to see somebody try that again, to like, hey, we've created this really cool game that a lot of people want to play. At most, we'll pay server space to host a lobby. But once you like do a matchmaking and find a game, you guys are actually just running it yourselves off your own network.
Call of Duty do that for a while? Not dedicated, but like people. It pissed people off because it would always take that time to look for who had the best connection.
But
to play that 10-player game.
Sure, but I bring this up as a trade-off to say that like we can go back to just selling you a $60 game again.
Yes.
Because we don't have any sort of long-term server costs or like hey, we made the game. As long as people have it, you can play it all you want.
Yeah. No, it's definitely like all these creative endeavors that these corporations are doing is to offset how the game being sold for $60 isn't enough anymore, right? And first of all, yes, it is upsetting to raise the prices on these games, but I think $60 is way too low for a lot of these games compared to what the PS3 days. Like a PS3 game versus a PS4 game is significantly less.
You're getting better product.
Yeah, you're getting a way better product with a PS4 game nowadays, right? So naturally that price needs to go up. Yeah. But like with all the like I definitely agree with you guys with the way it's how loot boxes are misused. But when it is used correctly, I completely am fine with it. And a lot of people are, obviously they're buying into it. So there's definitely.
So what would you define as used correctly?
Using correctly is like the cosmetic way. Like if I want to, for vanity's sake, I'm fine with that. You want to make your character look better, as long as it doesn't trump or stomp on anybody's gameplay incentives.
What about power boosting?
Power boosting, like your skills and abilities?
Like the World of Warcraft example.
I think that's actually a good way, because if I bought a game, I'm finally buying into WoW. I never played WoW, but let's say I want to start because I saw the expansion looking dope. Yeah, I agree. I don't want to wait 8 months before I play the new content. So that's a great way to kind of boost the player base, because that's good for the game itself. Now that you have a new player base, and you have new players introduced to the world, and that means the development team can keep developing. Yeah. So overall, I think it really wins in that kind of scenario. I think the only problem we have is when EA does shady things. Like that. I only see them being like the corporate is like, what the fuck? Like they're always pushing like how far they can go with this stuff. Yeah,
it's what would make loot boxes a lot more fair is if there was like some sort of time value of money comparison to break down like the scenario. So they're like, here it goes. Here's our Darth Maul character. Yeah. To get Darth Maul without paying anything, it's gonna take you 14,000 hours of gameplay time, right? Okay, so like let's just say that that's one of the constants that they set. Next scenario, you win a free loot box every time you play the game that only has 2 items in it out of 10,000 items total, and Darth Maul is one of those items. So here's the like free way that you can get it. Yeah. The paid way, you're getting a loot box with 5 items. It's powered up to give you at least 2 high-powered items, and he's considered, let's say, a high-powered item. Yeah. You now have a 1 in 400 chance of getting one, and that costs $2, $3, right? That's when I call bullshit and flip tables, because it's like you're showing me 2 scenarios where the investment significantly far outweighs. It's not even a choice. Yeah. Like in regards to me giving you time out of my life to invest, if my interest is getting the Darth Maul, you're literally saying I could kill myself, or I can just pay $3 up to 1/3 of 400, whatever.
Yeah, I think that just times. The gambling aspect, the probability game, you just got to take that out of the
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's just you're basically fucking them, right? It's a very
what if you add
situation.
Both? Okay. And what I mean by adding both is what if, and we'll use your Darth Maul example, you could get Darth Maul, but you have a chance to also get Darth Maul plus 2 skins.
Oh, that's
cool.
That's not bad.
You're still getting what you want, but you have the probability factor, the chance factor of getting what you want, and then a little bit extra.
But what's the delivery method for that? Is that the loot box, or is that like
that would be the loot box?
Okay,
you would pay for the Darth Maul loot box, and then you would roll the dice to see if you get the, equivalent to $5 each skins included in your loot box.
I think people will be okay with that.
It fattens the kitty, makes me feel like I'm getting more value. So I'm more inclined, I guess, to buy it, especially if it was the same price.
Yeah,
I think that's cool.
It seems to be like a percentage there where 80% is what you want, and then 20%. Like I think if you play around with the percentage, if it goes too far to 50-50, then it becomes too much of a problem.
And I guess where I stand on it is like, you just want your player community to feel like not extorted, right? Yeah. So like if I say, hey, look, you can get Darth Maul in a loot box. Each loot box costs $300, and let's say it's a 1 in 400 chance. Let's just assume the average person spends like $150 trying to get Darth Maul. What is the time value equivalent of that $150 purchase? Right. Whereas like it's not 14,000 hours, maybe it's like 200 hours, and you can get a Darth Maul. If you just keep playing games and earning the free 2-item loot box, and then the probability works out in a similar fashion. Because if someone chooses to invest time and another person chooses to invest money, I at least want to know that like I can respectably look both people in the eye and say you can enjoy this product. And I think that's where my biggest problem with the loot boxes is. One is like, technically you can get Darth Maul through the free, technically. But you could pay and have Darth Maul with way more of a guarantee and an assurance, and you won't be 90 years old when you finally get it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Technically, you can get it by 90, or you could pay $150 worth of loot boxes right now. Like that askew is where I'm like, F these guys. You know what I mean?
And everyone seems to do that, and that's why everyone's upset with it. There's no one buying into it saying like, this is a great deal. Look at I got Darth Maul. $500.
Yeah, you're still gonna find a whole bunch of people who want to buy loot boxes, even if the free time grind was respectable and like actually was a decent equivalent, right? Yeah.
People and you'll find the people on YouTube who will buy, 600-700 of the boxes just so they can get the revenue back via video and say, look at me opening up 700 loot boxes. And you'll always have those people. At the end of the day, though, the the FTC and the government and the regulatory body and the parents, they're not worried about that person. Yeah. They're worried about little Billy sitting at his computer that has your credit card loaded onto his account. Yep. God knows why you gave it to him, but you did. And now he's just sitting there going, click, 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 because he doesn't realize that that money is your money, and he doesn't understand the value of that money or how hard you work to earn that money.
Yep.
So, because of the predatory nature of everything.
Yep.
I'll play the devil's advocate on this one.
God forbid they ever put a threshold. Like 10 purchases, you must like re-log in your account to continue.
I understand the sentiment. But like, if we're fighting for the kids and the children every single time, oh my God. It's like at some point, it's the parents' fault, right? I mean,
I agree. At some point, you gotta step in and
like, stop using my credit card, you idiot. So
don't give it to them in the first place.
Yes, but like I how many children are there that are doing this? Is there a percentage where it's like
I'd say that's
an epidemic for the
I would actually say that it's a relatively high statistic.
It's pretty high.
That it's gaining the attention that Congress and senators are presenting these bills.
Okay.
For me, it's
a good excuse.
I'd say that's one of the things that I would be upset about, but it's more so that like just how it's set up in general is literally a downhill point towards just pay us the money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I guess that's where I have the biggest problem is like, because I don't see any children in casinos, but I see a lot of adults with gambling addiction, and those people also are swept up in these like loot box scenarios as well. And so for me, it's more like, look, just be honest, be ethical, make it fair, because people are still going to buy the loot boxes in droves.
Yep.
Because a lot of people have access to money, and time is more valuable than money.
Yeah.
But don't disrespect time so much that it's an illusion of choice. I only have to just spend the money because I will never spend that time.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I brought up to Larry a few episodes ago is like I'm surprised that the consoles or like the AAA guys are kind of getting the backlash first, right? Because no one's really talking about the mobile industry. They've been doing this for years before us. So are they doing
I disagree
something
with
more
you.
Right? Okay.
So the concept of freemium games, I would say, has been given a lot of backlash for a very long time. I would say the big difference between why mobile is sort of flying under the radar is that the amount of people who are playing mobile games and the age range and the demographic of them are so different compared to those who are playing console and PC games, that the individuals who are paying the freemium currencies, the Candy Crush generation who are paying for those extra lives or the thing that smashes the candies and whatnot, those are mostly adults who know better. And they know what they're spending.
Yeah.
Versus when you're got a game that's sticking that shiny new skin on the pedestal in front of the child, knowing that the marketing is aiming for that younger player that doesn't know any better. And that's where that issue is. But I forget the actual name of the episode, but South Park did an entire episode on freemium currencies and freemium games and paying to unlock time-gated content. No, they're by no means immune from it. They're just not the ones in the spotlight.
Yeah. I want to see that episode too, because they did a great episode on video games, the World of Warcraft one back in the day. So I want to go see that episode.
Oh yeah.
I want to look it up. Yeah,
it was some Canada game where you ran around and ate maple leaves, and the whole joke to the game was how stupid the game was. But because they had a time gate that you had to wait for a certain amount of time before you can run around and eat the leaves again, I think it was Stan kept buying to unlock the time gate, and he ended up charging I think a $30,000 bill to his parents' credit card.
Oh man, yeah, and publishers don't care. It's not their problem. It's parents' problem. So,
yep.
Well, hey, I actually learned a lot, and we got to talk a lot and express our opinions and feelings on loot boxes in general. I hope some high ups, some neckties get a hold of this podcast and get a better barometer reading.
Because they're looking for solutions.
No, I hope they do. Well, they're going to have government regulations and mandates pretty soon.
How else do we screw these guys without them knowing?
I'm sure they'll think of something. They always do.
Yeah.
Yeah, yep. They'll find ways. If it's not loot boxes, they'll figure out something new. Somebody will figure out a way to monetize content.
Yeah. Well, with that said, we've had a wonderful podcast with you. We've been doing this for over an hour now, and so we have a surprise mechanic for you. Brandon and I are going to step away from the microphones, and we're going to give you a couple minutes to just talk directly to our audience to promote, raise awareness, advertise, or plug, just shine some additional spotlight on something that is important to you, something you think is awesome, or even, whatever products or things that you're about to bring to the table yourself. So without further ado, sir, the floor is yours.
You just Kinder-egged me. Well, again, I want everyone to take a chance to take out a look at the firm. PressStartLegal.com is our website. You can find tons of information and resources. We have had a little bit of a break on our bi-weekly Ask Me Anything, but we will be picking them back up again very soon. We're growing. Everything is changing, and we want to open our doors to all of you. If you have questions, if you need legal advice, if you need help, please reach out to us, PressStartLegal.com, Zac at PressStartLegal.com. We're always around. We're always here. We're in the community. We want to help you guys. We want to, make your games the best that they can and make sure no one's going to sue you over them. And be prepared for the next generation of Stadia style software or hardware, whatever the hell they're calling that.
Sure, I agree. We will see when they call it something finally. Other than Stadia.
I don't know. Do they have a name for that style of the Netflix style?
They keep calling it the Netflix for
experience?
gaming, but they haven't really called it streaming online. They don't have a moniker for it that we can reference because Xbox Game Pass. We just talked earlier about. Stadia has their own thing. PlayStations are probably going to have their own thing. So there is no category that we can is it on? It's not even online streaming because obviously those are the streamers. Yeah, they need to come up with a name. It's true, right? It's going to be up to us.
What was On Live? They were first.
Yeah,
that's what everyone forgets. On Live was the first ones who did this, and it was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing the beta of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that's the future right there, man. Be able to play your video games on your phone at full 4K quality while you're sitting in traffic, while your self-driving car takes you to work.
Only Tesla traffic.
I can't wait for it.
All right, Zac, well, we're going to let you go, man. Thank you so much for everything that you've brought to our podcast and our companies as well. So we wish you the best. And, we hope that we don't have to see you too often because that means that somebody somewhere is suing us for something. This is one of those relationships where it's like, we're glad to have you, but hope we don't see you kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like the cops. No, I'm just kidding. No, you're awesome, dude. You're awesome, man. We'll talk to you soon,
thank you guys.
Sure.
Absolutely.
We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Larry Charles, say goodnight.